travel back in time just 5 years, 2020, let's say. If you could go back to that moment and show someone ChatGPT today, I think most people would say that's AGI for sure. So we're great at adjusting our expectations, which I think is like a wonderful thing. The thing that matters is the rate of progress that we have seen year over year for the last 5 years. A system that can either autonomously discover new science, that would satisfy any test I could imagine for an AGI.
OpenAI CEO Sam Altman sat down with venture capitalist Sarah Guo and the CEO of Snowflake Sridhar Ramaswamy to discuss AGI, the timeline that Sam sees to getting to AGI, AI's exponential growth, and also what he sees as the real win for AI. I pulled in some of the most insightful clips from that segment of the conversation. So without further ado, I'm Boardroom Wire. I do strategic breakdowns of business and technology. Let's jump into it.
You said it was a moment, Codex and experiencing, coding agents was a moment you felt the AGI. So I have to ask you about that. Like, what is the definition of AGI to you now, and how far away are we from it? What will that mean for us?
I think if you could go back to most people, if you could travel back in time just 5 years, 2020, let's say.
It's like the dark ages for AI, though.
So really quick, I thought that was just a funny comment because when you look at how fast this technology is moving, it really is mind-blowing. The first version of ChatGPT just feels rudimentary at this stage, right? So I'm going to let Sam keep going, but I just thought that was a funny comment.
Actually, that's a very interesting time because I think that was, if we could go back exactly 5 years, I may get this wrong, but I think that was just before we launched GPT-3.
Okay.
So the world had not yet seen like a good language model. And if you could go back to that moment and show someone ChatGPT today, to say nothing of Codex or anything else, but just ChatGPT, I think most people would say that's AGI for sure. Mm-hmm. And so we're great at adjusting our expectations, which I think is like a wonderful thing about humanity.
I definitely agree with Sam here. I think most people would consider the first version of ChatGPT when it came out to be artificial general intelligence by all of the respective measures and ways that we thought about AI at that time. And the best evidence for that is really the legacy tests that we had in mind for identifying artificial intelligence, like the Turing test. So Alan Turing was a mathematician and computer scientist in the early 20th century who really founded a lot of modern computer science and how we think about AI today. And he had a thought experiment or test that he laid out called the Turing test, which was basically if someone was interrogating a human and a computer and they failed to be able to identify the difference between a computer and a human, then that computer was intelligent. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, I think that we know that test isn't enough. But our modern LLMs and AI models are very clearly well beyond that now. I think that many people would be fooled, if not everybody, if they were put to that test with these LLMs today. So again, the goalpost has kind of shifted, as Sam mentions, and our idea of what is AGI, ultimately what does AI need to do to become artificial general intelligence, has also changed. Sam's going to talk more about the rapid growth of AI and how he sees this continuing, so let's jump back into it.
I think mostly the question of what AGI is doesn't matter. It is a term that people define differently. The same person often will define it differently. The thing that matters is the rate of progress that we have seen year over year for the last 5 years should continue for at least the next 5, probably well beyond that, but hard to say.
This is a really important insight from Sam because he obviously has firsthand knowledge of what's going on in the big AI labs and in OpenAI's research team. So there's some debate amongst people within the AI space in regards to how long is this exponential growth going to continue, because obviously the path that we're on if it keeps going, then it's pretty hard to fathom where this technology is going to be in 10, 20 years from now. So Sam gives us basically a timeline for how long he thinks this exponential growth is going to continue. And according to Sam, he says that for the next 5 years, he expects the hypergrowth to keep going. So I think that this is a really important insight for people who are building businesses with AI, or even if you're just using AI tools internally, because with this context, you can safely assume that AI is going to keep getting better for the next 5 years. And that may sound obvious to people, right? Of course, AI is going to keep getting better. But I think that a lot of people who build companies, they build processes, they're building it with the current capability, current functionality in mind. And Sam Altman said this in the past, that if you don't build and if you don't create your processes with the expectation that this technology is going to get better, those processes and what you're doing could very quickly become obsolete. So I think this is an important insight from someone who obviously has firsthand insider knowledge.
And whether you declare the AGI victory in 24 or 26 or 28, and whether you declare the superintelligence victory in 28 or 30 or 32, is way less important than this one long, beautiful, shockingly smooth exponential. All of that said, to me, a system that can either autonomously discover new science or be such an incredible tool to people that our rate of scientific discovery in the world like quadruples or something, that would satisfy any test I could imagine for an AGI. Some other people would say it's got to be a system capable of self-improvement. Plenty of people would say like ChatGPT with memory today, very AGI-like.
I think this clip is really valuable too, because he kind of gives us two insights. So the first is, what are we going to see over the next 5 years? Where I think Sam kind of lays it out that many people, with the enhancements that we're going to see in AI, where this technology is going by 2026, 2030, 2032, they're going to believe that we've achieved AGI. And that definition is going to differ amongst different people, but we're right there on the cusp of some pretty big innovations, according to Sam. Now, what I find more interesting about Sam's perspective here is he's less focused on the philosophical question of when are we going to achieve AGI, and more focused on the outcomes that this is going to drive for society and business at large. And I really like this perspective, and I've heard it from other technology leaders who describe similar things. So Sergey Brin, for example, I recently heard him talking about how AI is really about scaling people beyond the limits of human capability. So he gave an example where he basically said, it's great if Google can summarize the top 10 Google search results, but frankly, I can do that work myself. However, if it analyzes 10,000 different search results and provides a summary of that, that saves him, weeks worth of work, and frankly is something that he could not do without the help of AI. And I think that's the concept that Sam is alluding to here, and that's where his focus has clearly shifted with AI. It's not about, philosophical questions regarding, is this AGI, is this super intelligent? He's focused on how do we improve real world outcomes. So he gives the example of people doing research and advancing or increasing their output for X. To me, this has now gone past the kind of theoretical AGI point, and now we're looking at what's the real world tangible output of this technology, because ultimately that's where it has to go. We've heard Satya Nadella say the same thing, where all of this investment in AI is great, but ultimately this needs to show up in productivity. This needs to show up within the GDP numbers. So I think it's interesting that Sam is now using that as the barometer and saying when AI can help us achieve these, step forwards in productivity, to him, that's AGI if it's anything. Now with that, I'm gonna wrap things up. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. And if you enjoyed the content, come on back. I'm Boardroom Wire. I do strategic breakdowns of business and technology. See you in the next one.